Is it advisable to run your website on WordPress? In this video, we'll take a look at some of the pros and the cons.
Digital marketing, website design and social media management. barryriley.co.uk.
Welcome. This video is attached to and embedded in an article that I wrote on this subject, and we're asking why use WordPress to run your website. Is it advisable? Is it wise? Is it a good idea? What are the advantages and disadvantages of running your website on WordPress? The full article, if you're watching this on YouTube, the article is available on barryriley.co.uk, my digital marketing site, and the link I'll stick in the description if you're watching on YouTube. Okay, so firstly, we'll try and touch this as briefly as we can. What is WordPress? WordPress is a CMS, a content management system. It started its life as a blogging platform some years ago, but now it's widely used. In fact, they reckon over 30% of the websites in the world are now powered by WordPress. So it's huge. You've heard of it. But the questions we'll hopefully be answering here. Is it advisable to use WordPress as the platform to run your website? Okay, firstly, a content management system. Let's explain as briefly and clearly as we can about this. You get this thing. This is the dashboard. Now, what this means is your web developer or your web designer develops and designs the website, publishes the website, and then hands the keys over to you, the end client. So if you own the website, you have a back-end login that you can get into the website and make perhaps just subtle changes. You can make changes to calendar events or introducing new staff members or various different things. More recently, of course, you could have posted your own update with regards to coronavirus opening hours. Previously, in years gone by, before content management systems, you would have to, in order to do this, you would have to contact your website designer, request the changes that be made, and then the website designer would charge you a small fee perhaps for continuing to make these updates and changes on your site. WordPress allows you, the owner of the website, to post to it, to write things, to change the text content. Perhaps it's a change to opening hours at Christmas time or something like that. It allows you into the back end to make these changes as and when you please. So the advantages are there for being able to log into your own website and make your own changes. Now, we're going to start by discussing very briefly the argument of content management systems versus traditional HTML coding. Now, as a web developer, I've been developing websites for many, many years. In the early days, we had to handwrite them in HTML code. Then we moved on to PHP, learning all the time. We covered CSS, cascading style sheets, and all this kind of code was all learned. Then along came WordPress, and it became a kind of DIY thing. People were making their own websites. But still, there is a level of coding required, and many web developers would cringe at the fact that others were using WordPress. I personally know quite a few web developers who only use WordPress now, but they apply their own coding to the system, as I do. As we go along, we apply adjustments to the coding to make it right. We're using WordPress as the core platform, taking the benefits from this, but also adjusting the code as we go as well as need be. So the big advantage of using WordPress rather than having a web developer develop the site from scratch and write the code from scratch, the big thing is the cost. The cost is the huge factor here. Most of my clients are small to medium-sized businesses, and they don't want to spend £4,000 having their website updated. They would rather spend £400 or £500, not £4,000 or £5,000. It's down to cost, and with that is the time, because the time is money. And of course, a web developer can develop and publish a website far, far quicker using a content management system. Again, making the adjustments if need be as they go. But cost is, of course, cost and time are the main factors of a web developer who has experience in developing websites from scratch using WordPress. So this is the reason that if you use a web developer, you have the options. From time to time, I will develop a site that WordPress wouldn't be able to run, or I would have to go hunting for unstable scripts and plugins. So what I'll do is I'll look at the site and the project and end up having to develop the site from scratch. This is far, far more expensive. It's a far more expensive process. So the time and the cost are the main differences here. Now, the pros and the cons. We're going to cover the pros and the cons of using WordPress as a platform to power your website on the internet, as thousands, millions do. So we'll start with looking at some of the pros, the advantages of running your website from WordPress. We've already covered the cost. The development costs we've covered already. We've explained that it's far, far cheaper for a website developer to use WordPress as the platform. Therefore, it brings the overall cost down. Now, the open source, WordPress is a project. It's an open source project. The platform itself is free, doesn't cost anything. You can, of course, purchase premium themes and plugins and the like, but the cost of the platform is free because it's open source. There are developers all around the world writing pieces of code for WordPress, and it's continuing to develop. I did myself years ago. I wrote a couple of plugins some years ago, one of which was downloaded over 10,000 times some years ago. It's not something I've done for a while, but there are developers, there are website coders and developers all around the world who are contributing to improving WordPress, writing plugins and code for the platform. So it's a project that's alive and well and developing. It's continuing to develop. So the other thing we're going to cover, one of the main advantages, over 50% of the visitors that are going to land on your website are coming in on a mobile phone, a smartphone. The figures are staggering. If your website does not look good on a smartphone or on a mobile phone, forget it. If the user has to zoom in and scroll along in order to read one paragraph of text, or if the navigation menu is confusing on a mobile device, forget it. The user will bounce, you will lose the user and the customer. Your website has to look good on a mobile phone. Furthermore, Google will punish your site ranking if your site doesn't load well on mobile devices. So whether it's an iPad you pick up, whether it's a mobile phone or it's a traditional laptop or computer, your website has to load on all of these things, and WordPress does this brilliantly. WordPress adapts, it's fluent, it's dynamic, and it adapts to whatever platform or device that the visitor is using. And WordPress handles this fantastically well. This has got to be one of the main benefits, perhaps, of using WordPress. We've already mentioned the handing over of the keys, as in the developer makes the site for you, then basically hands over the keys to the site. To emphasize further on the importance of this, the amount of projects that I've taken on over the years in website development, the amount of projects that I've taken on that involve the client saying, well, yeah, if you can have a look at this website for us, the guy that made it years ago, we can't get a hold of him now. He's moved down south or something like that. And it's been sitting there. The website has been sitting on the internet for 5 years, untouched, sitting on there, gathering dust, and we have to pick up the pieces of this website, wipe it and start again with it. But of course, the advantage of WordPress is this: your website is alive. It's not dead and on the internet and gathering dust. Furthermore, the search engines will see that you are making changes to it, albeit just little changes to the text from time to time. Give Google a reason to crawl your website on a regular basis. If the website sits there for years and is untouched, your page ranking will drop. It will plummet. So basically, handing over the keys is hugely important. You own the website. If you are a business owner and you want a website, it's yours. You own it. You should be able to go in and make adjustments to it at any time. And the advantage there is self-explanatory. And finally, the advantage we're going to cover is it's a blog. Now, the word blog seems old-fashioned these days, doesn't it? Seems like an old internet, World Wide Web term. The importance of writing blogs, and you can call them whatever you want. You can call them articles, journals, pieces, news. The importance of writing a blog. Every single WordPress site that I do for a client, I will encourage the client to, even if it's once a month, write an article. It's a blog. Write an article and post it. Now, this could be, again, it could be just announcing new staff members. It could be something in relation to the actual company or the business. It could be anything at all. Or better still, write an article that shows your expertise on your trade. And the benefits of that are huge. It's confidence building with the end customer, and the search engines love it. The search engines will regularly crawl your site, and your page ranking score will go up and up, and you will be picking up keywords that you had missed previously, perhaps. And not so much keywords. We'll do a completely different article on the importance of keywords, because keywords, just very briefly, keywords are not as important as they were. Google is smarter than you think. Google understands what a business is about, or what a page is about. Even if it's missing some of these keywords, we'll do a completely separate article on this. But the fact that it's a blog is a huge advantage. It allows you to go on and write articles on a regular basis. Now, those are some of the pros. Let's have a look at some of the cons. The disadvantages, well, there's only one really that we're going to cover on this feature, and that is of security. And do you know, it's unfair to say that WordPress or WordPress sites are unsecure. It would be unfair to say that. However, if left to rot on the internet, if you put a website onto the internet on WordPress and you forget about it, you leave it there and you don't keep going into the dashboard and checking on it, what will happen? It will become vulnerable to attack, because there are security, especially if you're using a lot of these free plugins. Again, this comes back to using an experienced web developer who, instead of using a plugin for something simple, will write the piece of code in CSS or HTML. But if you leave the WordPress site on there and don't check on it every month or at least if you allow the updates to build up, your site will become open to attack. There are, unfortunately, hackers and scammers who, just for fun, are out there on the internet and discovering vulnerabilities on particular plugins. Then they go searching the internet for websites that have these plugins installed, and they attack. So you've got to keep on top of the security. How do you do that? You log into your dashboard, and if you see the message, I'm not sure if you can see that, if you see that message that says updates, you've got 15 updates pending and there's a new version of WordPress available, click here to install. Do it. Install the updates. Keep on top of these, and you won't have to worry too much about security on WordPress. So, with all that in mind, the question remains, if WordPress is free, and if it's an open source free platform, why would you need a website developer? Well, we have covered one or two of the points already. WordPress, of course, anybody can go on and log in and create a WordPress site. this anybody can do it. It's fairly straightforward. However, you have to remember the other software involved. Adobe Photoshop and After Effects and Premiere, if you were looking for video effects. These programs are certainly not free. Straight away, we've listed over £1,000 worth of software just with those 3 programs. These programs you have to know your way around because the graphics have to be designed right, and it's got to look good. And if you design your own website, you're going to spend a lot of time trial and error. And of course, you've got to learn Photoshop, and perhaps you're familiar with Photoshop, but it's got to look good. It's got to load quickly. The speed of page load is hugely important in search engines. Now, talking of search engines, using a web developer, if you use an experienced web developer, there are 2 types of WordPress web developers. There are the web developers who use WordPress for the convenience that we've mentioned, and there are the blaggers, the ones who have the lad that works on a Saturday said he could do it, and they miss an awful lot, I'm afraid, because an experienced web developer on the initial brief of a website project will take in the information and then advise as to where that information should sit. An experienced web developer will look at the project in the eyes of Google and think, would Google like that? How would that sit? Where would that feed the snippet to get to number 1 on Google? And all these type of things. So an experienced web developer can help with search engine optimization and look at the entire project from an angle that will optimize the site from day 1 to ensure that the traffic is going to come in. So that's perhaps one of the most important points. We've mentioned already the coding adjustments. The advantage of using an experienced web developer means that if there are adjustments to be made in the code, if you want a box to appear just below where the theme allows it to, a developer can do that without any question. Just the little adjustments and the finishing touches really is what's key here. And finally, the subject of outsourcing. It's common sense, really. We've mentioned, it could take you months, years to learn Photoshop. It could take you all this time to learn your way around WordPress itself. And it's basic outsourcing. What you have to weigh up is the time, which is money, the time versus the cost. And of course, not just in business, but in general life, if you had problems with your car, if you wanted to change your brake pads on your car, but you didn't know anything about cars, you're faced with 2 options. You can go on eBay or Amazon and buy the parts that you need. You can spend a fortnight watching YouTube videos to see how to change these brake pads, and in the end discover that your brakes don't work, so you end up taking the thing to the garage, which you should have done in the first place. So it's much the same as website design. I do pick up the pieces quite often when I get brought into projects to take on. Quite often we have to pick up the pieces. We try to make it ourselves, or the lad that works on the Saturday afternoon, he said he could do it, but he's made a bit of a mess of it. Could you come in and sort it out for us? So we do get that quite often. But those are some of the points, perhaps, of why you should actually use a web developer rather than attempting yourself to do your own search engine optimization and everything else. So that's really it. Those hopefully we've covered some of the points there. Just trying to cover some of the points, the pros and the cons of why you should use WordPress, and the advantages of doing so, and the main disadvantage being, of course, the security. You've got to keep on top of that if you are using this as a platform. That is hugely important. Okay, as always, thanks for watching. If you want to subscribe, hit subscribe. If you don't. But it's always a huge thanks for watching. And head over to barryriley.co.uk. There are more articles on there on digital marketing. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Digital marketing, website design and social media management. barryriley.co.uk